defeating photonic barriers or overcoming barriers in general. And when I say defeating, I really mean giving yourself an opportunity to fight back. Most cops are either killed or mortally wounded before they have an opportunity to fire back, meaning most cops who are killed never get to marksmanship. That's why I place a major emphasis on making sure we give ourselves a chance to get there. If becoming the most capable individual you can be in all things tactics, shooting performance, and personal development interests you, subscribe to this channel and consider following the link in the description where you can become part of the conversation in a purposely built community instead of being a passive consumer of information where there's no accountability for what you learn. I realize the tactics you use don't matter until they do. You can quickly dominate a guy asleep on the couch regardless of how you made entry into the room. So for the sake of shaping the only scenario that matters, paying particular attention to how and if you get there being tested, the standard is a bad guy with a gun ready to shoot you. That's also an ambush, and ambushes suck. They suck even more when you can't see the thing that's causing you problems, because if you can't see it, you can't shoot it. Not first, at least. Nor can you shoot without positive identification or, at a minimum, articulating why you believe you're engaging the bad guy when you fire in that moment. I realize ballistic shields are becoming more mainstream and widely accepted, but for whatever reason, there's still a holdout of dudes who think their rifle and tattooed forearms will allow them to accomplish extremely improbable things in certain situations. Let's just start with, I know quite a few officers who have been seriously hurt or killed without one, but I can't say I know of any that have met the same fate with one, which seems like a really good starting point. For those who need a little more convincing, here's a good reason why it might make sense to use one. Defeating photonic barriers or overcoming barriers in general. And when I say defeating, I really mean giving yourself an opportunity to fight back. Both barriers and photonic barriers prevent you from being able to see the threat in times where the threat may see you. And if the standard exists in that scenario, which is a bad guy with a gun waiting to shoot you, you may or may not have an opportunity to respond, because there's a chance you're already seriously hurt or mortally wounded. And in those situations, if you do shoot back, where are you shooting exactly and why? I watched a marksman on a SWAT team who was in a supported position behind a shield take gunfire from a suspect from the second-story window of a residence. The officer didn't fire back because he couldn't see the bad guy. And this is a sniper looking through an optic at the window the gunfire is coming from. A round coming from this door and leaving a hole doesn't indicate exactly where the threat is without knowing where the impact of that round was and possibly the trajectory. The shooter could be high, low, left, right, or anywhere in between. In an instance where it's a more fluid situation on an approach, did you even get a chance to see the impact of the round through the barrier towards you? All you have to do is go outside and look at the front of your house to realize how impossible it is for you to anticipate where the gunfire is coming from and have the opportunity to address it after falling down or running for cover. Because that's been proven over and over again to be what happens. Not because the cop isn't trained enough, and he might not be, but because the physiological responses to stress tend to force your body to respond in that way. And if you're being shot at and unable to return fire, it probably makes sense to get down or run for cover. Nobody wants to stand in the area where the rounds are impacting because that means you're literally on the X. In an effort to keep things simple, a photonic barrier is light in your field of view that obscures a subject or area of interest by means of overexposing, oversaturating, or overshadowing. A photonic barrier exists when light reflects off an object or feature in the environment, preventing you from being able to see what's on the other side. An external photonic barrier exists when light from outside of your field of view radiates intensely off a very reflective object and back to your eye. Since the sun is the most prevalent source of light we encounter, I'll use that as the primary area of concern. When the sun is in direct contact with a piece of glass or radiating off the objects in the environment, there's a high likelihood a photonic barrier exists, meaning you can't see on the other side, which means you also can't shoot. This becomes problematic when the standard exists on the other side of that barrier. It doesn't matter how cool you look or how tricked out your rifle is, it won't help you when it's laying at your feet. It also won't matter what fundamental skills you've mastered with your weapon if you don't get the opportunity to use it. You can somewhat defeat the barrier with your own light source depending on how powerful your light is. This is a problematic solution at distance, and even once you're close enough to defeat the barrier, your perspective of what you can see on the other side is limited to how concentrated the beam of your light source is, which means you may or may not be focusing on where the bad guy is. I don't know for sure, but I'm inclined to believe the guy wouldn't be standing 5 feet in front of the window making themselves a fully available target. You might be accepting unnecessary risk during your duties. If you don't have a shield or you don't have access to one, then you're going to have to approach and do all of the things without one, and that sucks, but it might be necessary. If you have a shield and you refuse to use it or understand how and where to use it appropriately, then you're increasing the likelihood your face will take the round instead of the shield, and that would be considered unnecessary risk. It seems like cops or people expect to be able to open doors while conducting CQB, walk right in and see a fully available target just waiting for you. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes the door is barricaded or the bad guy starts shooting through the door from a concealed position. In which case, the best that you could hope for is not getting hit. The internet tells you CQBs being able to move freely from room to room. I can't say that I've seen a video that more closely replicates what you could expect to see in real life. Locked doors, barricaded doors, having to move linear down a hallway facing closed doors while covering the team, meaning standing out in the open and waiting to get shot from something you never see coming. I understand that you need to learn the fundamentals and you do that in a controlled space. But where exactly does entertainment, logic, and practical expectations align? If you have an opinion, you should let the people that probably aren't watching this video any longer know about it in the comments. Every generation of law enforcement tactics looks back on the previous generation and says, that was dumb, like rushing cars with mag lights. And when an officer is shot in or around a structure, almost always the universal solution is the shield. If we know what the solution is to fix the issue, why not consider fixing the problem before it's a permanent problem that you can't put back together? If you want to continue learning, subscribe to the channel and check out the instructors who are collaborating with me to build an actual community of like-minded people with the best information possible by following the link in the description.
118, so this is my family all over. I can't copy. I want family all over. We got crews coming.